today I'm going to be talking about the unsolved disappearance of Kristin Smart. Kristin Smart was 19 years old at the time of her disappearance, and she was last seen following a party for another student's birthday on her university campus. She was studying at California Polytechnic State University and went missing on the 25th of May 1996. So allegedly at around 2 a.m. Kristin Smart was found passed out on the lawn outside of the place where the party was happening. So she was found by two students, Cheryl Anderson and Tim Davis. So they both found her in quite a state and thought, okay, we really need to walk her home. They began walking her home when they were accompanied by Paul Flores. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's Flores. So that's just how I'm going to pronounce it for the rest of the video. I'm sorry if I get anyone's names wrong. I don't know. Really don't mean to offend anyone. It's just I'm English, so I'm not like really sure about these sort of names. So Paul Flores offered to help the pair walk her home, and he did live the closest to Kristin than the other two students. So he was actually the last person to see Kristin Smart before she went missing. So Cheryl and Tim Davis departed first, and basically Paul Flores just continued to walk Kristin Smart home. So as she was said to be in quite a state, it seems like she was actually capable of walking herself. So whether she was just passed out tired, I'm not too sure, but she was able to walk herself physically. So according to Flores, he walked Kristin up until his accommodation, and then he obviously went to bed or wherever, back to his room, and then he said Kristin carried on to walk to her accommodation by herself. So I'm just going to cut this one short before any of you guys start thinking it. It's very unlikely that Kristin Smart ran away or was I don't know, intoxicated. I don't even know whether she was actually drinking, but whether she was in such a state that she ran away or wasn't herself or anything like that, I don't think that's likely, and the police and a lot of other people do not think that's likely, because she didn't have any cash with her, no credit cards or anything like that. It was literally just herself. So basically the university had its own campus police security people who made sure the students were safe, and we still have those today. So basically the police didn't actually report her missing as soon as they were aware she was no longer on the campus. And that is simply because at this time during the holidays, it was Memorial Day weekend. At this time during the holidays, it wasn't totally uncommon for students to go on vacation or go see their families or anything like that. So I guess they just assumed that is what she had done. Eventually, the campus police started thinking, okay, this is a little bit unusual now, and they started searching the university to see if they could find anything about Kristin Smart's whereabouts. So when it became clear that the campus police weren't going to find anything, they did actually get police dogs involved. The police dogs went around the university campus, and basically the room that they hit or chose or signaled that there was something unusual there, or they believed Kristin Smart had been there, it actually turned out that it was Paul Flores's dormitory. And then when they let the dogs inside the dormitory, they were particularly drawn to the corner of Paul Flores's mattress. So at this sort of point, police were starting to believe that actually maybe Kristin Smart hadn't just departed Paul Flores at his accommodation, outside of it. Maybe she actually accompanied him to his room. And although that it seems a little bit fishy, and you're probably thinking that's quite unusual, the police at this point didn't have any evidence to suggest foul play, so it was kind of a dead end in a way. So this wasn't the only search carried out by the police and police dogs. Since her disappearance, there have been many extensive searches, including dogs that sniff out the scent of human remains. So a kind of breakthrough, but I'm not sure whether it's like a complete breakthrough, was in September 2016. So that was only like a year and a half ago. That is still quite recent. So you can see that they're not like treating this case as like closed, or they're not giving up. They are like actually continuing to try and find out what happened to Kristin Smart. So basically, in September, FBI dogs were used, and basically what they did was, like, police units, FBI, etc., they dug up parts of like the university grounds around where her dormitory was. The search was supposed to like take over a period of 4 days, but by the third day, all 3 sites that they'd been digging up, there had been objects found. I'm really wondering what came of this dig, what were the objects that they found, and actually I don't know. The last information that I can find about the dig was that it was from 2017, in an article saying that basically the items were still being investigated and like they hadn't found anything at that point. And whether these items are still being investigated to this day, because it is only like early to mid 2018 at the moment, and I don't know how late in 2017 they were being investigated. It could be that they are still being investigated right now, or it could be that the objects didn't like lead to anything, or they weren't significant. I do not know. I would imagine that if they weren't of significance, there probably would have been some sort of press release about it, some sort of like article or something in the news or something like that. So I kind of think that they are still being investigated. And if they're being investigated after all this time, clearly they think there's something like useful about them. There has actually been an act passed in her name, and this is called the Kristin Smart Security Act. It was first put in place on the 1st of January 1999. This was basically put in place because of the slow response by the campus police. This basically states that all educational institutions must like get in contact, have like a sort of agreement with local police about like when to report cases and like missing students and violence towards students and things like that. It's quite important, I believe. Like that is kind of something that's good. Something good that's come from something terrible is that it's preventing like a lot of similar cases to the one of Kristin Smart from like coming to surface. Up until today, there have actually been no real leads other than the objects found at the dig in September 2016, and the case does remain unsolved. No one does know about like the whereabouts or what possibly happened to Kristin Smart. However, just a couple months ago, in March 2018, Kristin Smart's parents did speak about Kristin like in the past tense. And of course I am very much aware that when a person has been missing for a certain period of time, they are like given a like date of death, like a date of death. Like we don't actually know, but because they're missing for so long, like chances are they did pass away. But it sounded like in this article that I read about this sort of like conferencey thing, that they kind of somewhat knew that on the day she went missing, there was some sort of foul play and that she did die on the 25th of May. And I don't know whether they know anything more than we do, whether they prefer to keep things out of the news or anything like that, but I just did find that like quite significant that they were talking about her, because I believe like most parents would like literally till the day they died would kind of have like a string of hope, or in some way like hope or in some way presume that their child is still out there, and I just found that quite unusual. So in terms of theories, there are like a couple, and the first one is basically she was briefly linked to a man called Scott Peterson. They both attended the same university, so I believe this is like the only real link between the two, but for some reason people believed he might have had something to do with her disappearance. And basically Scott Peterson was convicted of murder sometime later from her disappearance of his wife and his unborn son. Obviously there's not much to go on there. They are just kind of like suggesting that because a murderer went to same university at the same time, maybe he had something to do with it. And I believe this theory was like dropped quite quickly by the police when Peterson said, no, I had nothing to do with that. because like what did he have to lose? He'd already admitted to a murder. I believe that if he had actually murdered her, he would have just agreed to this one, like admitted to this one too. But the police dropped it very quickly, and in my personal view, I don't see the two, the disappearance and the murder of his wife related at all, and this theory like didn't really stick in my head for too long. The theory that I believe to be most valid is the one in regards to Paul Flores, and the majority of you watching this will be sat there thinking, duh, like, do you know what I mean? It's so clear that he has something to do with it. So as I mentioned, Kristin Smart has already been pronounced legally dead, and this was in 2002. In 2005, her parents actually filed a lawsuit against Paul Flores, and Paul Flores denied having anything to do with her disappearance, but Flores' family actually filed a lawsuit against the Smart family for causing emotional distress. This to me seems a little bit unsympathetic, because of course being accused of murdering someone or being accused of having something to do with someone's disappearance who is currently still missing, that will cause you some distress, of course, if it's like not true. If someone accused me of murder, wow, okay, that would cause me some damage. But filing a lawsuit against a family who are still missing their child and who have been experienced this level of emotional distress and even more for this many years, I'm like, what? This is like a little bit, like, I don't know, unsympathetic. But to me, the idea that Paul Flores did have something to do with it is definitely the most prominent theory. He was the last to see her before she went missing, and I know that a lot of other things could happen. Like, obviously he said he left Kristin Smart and she like carried on to walk to her dormitory. Anything could happen on the way from his dormitory to her dormitory. She might have decided she wants something to eat. She might want to go somewhere for a drink. She might have gone back to the party. We don't know. But there is a witness to say that Paul was seen just with Kristin standing at a street corner, and there aren't any other witnesses that saw Kristin since departing from Paul Flores. It seems quite unlikely to me. Then obviously there's that huge elephant in the room that actually police dogs sensed that Kristin Smart was actually in Paul Flores' room. Obviously, she may have been in his room prior to the disappearance, like weeks before, days before, I don't know. But if that was true, don't you think Paul Flores would have said, no, actually, like, this was from some time ago, we had a study break or something like that, but I can't see anything of him admitting to that. So it does seem that in some way Paul Flores had something to do with it, or maybe knows something a little bit more than he's letting on. It just seems like that is the only kind of answer to this. To what extent did he play a role in her disappearance? I don't know, and I wouldn't like to hazard a guess. So that is basically it. I can't really find any other theories other than like the brief one of Scott Peterson. I feel like everyone is still set on the fact that Paul Flores had something to do with it, but without evidence, there is no conviction. So it is absolutely devastating for the Smart family, but it's not actually completely impossible or completely uncommon for any new information to come to light now or sometime in the future. So I guess you just can't lose hope. Basically, if anyone did ever have any information regarding her disappearance or her whereabouts, there is actually a $75,000 reward. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up so that I know you enjoy this kind of content. I know that the only 2 videos on my channel now are actually to do with missing people, but that is not like the only part of true crime that I have interest in, and I'm definitely like happy to look into any other areas or basically any kind of case I'm happy to look into for you guys, so just let me know. And then subscribe if you do like this sort of content so that you can keep up to date with all my latest videos. Thank you guys so much for watching.